Hello and welcome to WNHH Radio's Dateline New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make our community tick. Jeffrey Spitz Cohan is looking to make New Haven tick this weekend. He's come to town to spread the gospel, the Jewish vegan gospel. Say that again, the Jewish vegan gospel. Jeffrey is executive director of a group called Jewish Veg. He's here in the WNHH studio to tell us what that's all about. Welcome to WNHH, Jeffrey, and thank you for making time to come in.
Thank you, Paul, for having me here. It's great to be here.
All right, so Jewish Veg, a lot of us Jews, we veg out every Shabbat. We're about to have Shabbos coming at sundown tonight. But you're talking about a different kind of vegging out.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about a diet of no animal products, no dairy, no meat, veganism.
Right.
And your Jewish veganism, which
Yes.
is a distinctive, and Eric Mastriano writes in, hello to all. Hello, Eric. Thanks for tuning in. So why are we talking about Jewish veganism? Why would one combine a life choice not to eat dairy or meat or eggs with a life choice to identify and live as a Jew?
Great question, Paul, and it really comes down to three simple reasons. The first is that the original instructions in the Torah, and this applies to Jews and Christians alike, is to eat a plant-based diet. You see it in Genesis 1:29, right there in the creation story. And there's no question, there's no equivocation about what that means. The second thing is we are permitted to eat meat, but in the biblical account, the permission to eat meat was granted to us just as a concession when we were at our lowest spiritual state.
After the flood.
Right, after the flood. Ooh, you know your Judaism. And then
And
the
God
third
said,
thing,
okay.
Yeah.
And I realized I almost wiped everybody out. People aren't going to be purpose. Let them eat their meat, but let's give it some holiness, some rules. We're not going to cause pain to the animals. We're not going to be beasts when we eat meat.
right. In a sense, what that says is we're going to put restrictions on consuming animal products that are not there when we're eating plants. With plants, you can eat virtually anything. There are no restrictions because there's no ethical issue with eating plants as there is with animals.
Now, I have actually met, I'm vegan, and my friends who are vegetarian but not vegan actually thank plants before they eat them for giving their life for us. And I have to admit that was a little too far for me. I feel like plants are there naturally to feed us, right or wrong. Call me speciesist. What about the argument? And there are a bunch of arguments I get as a Jewish vegan. I actually don't proselytize. I've been a vegetarian in some form since 1982 and a vegan since 1995. I live as a halakhic Jew. And I'm not sure I always argue that other people should be vegan because the argument comes up, first of all, as a Jew. So I'm a conservative Jew. I was having lunch with a friend of mine who's an Orthodox rabbi. And he said, but in the Torah it says, you shall have meat on Friday night, on Shabbat, as a special treat because it's a holy day. My rabbi, who's conservative, is a vegetarian. And his argument is, what is the purpose behind that statement in the context of the time it was given? The purpose was that meat was hard to get and it was special. And the idea is that you have something special on Shabbat where you're living kind of beyond the dreary everyday world for Sabbath and celebrating. But that now meat is plentiful. And the concept is to eat something special, so it doesn't have to be meat. But then the one who decided this was Rav Kook, K-O-O-K. He was the chief rabbi, the first chief rabbi of Israel. And what people don't know is he was a vegetarian. However, he was not a vegetarian on Friday night. He
Right.
said, well, I'm a vegetarian and I live halakhically according to Jewish law. But Jewish law tells me I have to eat meat on Friday night. So he didn't agree with my rabbi. He didn't agree that you eat something special, and that's what meat meant there. He said it means meat. It says meat. So where do you stand on that? Do you eat meat on Friday night,
A
Jeffrey?
few things, definitely not. It's funny because that particular, what you're talking about eating meat on Shabbat is not in the Torah. It is not. It's in the Talmud. And it's funny, it's only partially quoted. If you go to that section of the Talmud, which is a commentary on the Torah, not quite as authoritative as the Torah itself. In that sense.
And there's often disagreement.
And there's often disagreement. But when you
Majority
go,
opinion, minority
yes,
opinion.
you could actually do my job, Paul. You're doing great. But when you go to that section of the Talmud, it further goes on to say, because the second temple has been destroyed and there's no animal sacrifice, you should only enjoy Shabbat with wine.
Ooh.
So it's based on a partial, incomplete quotation.
And that's part of the problem with fundamentalism. Whether you take literal readings of the Torah, there are a lot of us who believe, and conservatives kind of take the middle road. Conservative Jews like myself, which is sort of like American jurisprudence, that we do believe we're based a society based on laws or tradition based on law, but that law is a product of its time, and there's a deeper meaning, and that it evolves based on new realities. So your argument seems to be that there's no longer animal sacrifice. So if there are specific laws about animal sacrifice, it doesn't mean we still kill the animals. It means we do something special with that spirit to get us closer to God and live holy. So tell me, Jeffrey, you run an organization called Jewish Veg. You're speaking this Friday night at Slifka Center.
Mm-hmm.
Are you speaking after dinner? What's the deal?
Yes, I'm also speaking at 5:30 Saturday, and that event is open to the public.
Mm-hmm. It's not open tonight?
I don't think so, but I know for sure that obviously it's open to students, any Yale student. But tomorrow at 5:30, I'll be speaking specifically about animal agriculture and the damage it's doing to the environment.
Tell me about that.
And how that mixes with the Torah.
And how does it?
Well, actually, this is animal agriculture is the leading cause of environmental degradation, basically across the board, including climate change.
Is that partly because of the methane released by the animal's flatulation, but also about the amount of crops an animal consumes, we're going to eat, versus the amount we would eat?
This is amazing, but like I said, you could do my job. That's exactly it. It's those are the two, not the only two, but the two main drivers. Yes.
And tell me about that second one. Tell me about that second one.
This is, and this goes back to the Jewish concept of Bal Tashi, thou shalt not waste. Thou shalt not waste natural resources. To feed the world's 60 billion farm animals, the vast majority of grain, soybeans, corn, these basic monocrops are being grown to feed animals, not people. It's a highly inefficient way to feed people because you're feeding the animal multiple times to get one meal. We could be growing crops just to feed people.
And of that 60 billion, how much less would we have to grow, or how many more people could be fed if we weren't eating animals?
It's we could feed the world 3 times over, easily.
Wow, and it would taste better.
Yeah, I think so.
We're talking to Jeffrey Spitz Cohan. He's the executive director of a group called Jewish Veg. It promotes veganism in the Jewish tradition. Jeffrey has swung by New Haven, his first visit, I'm told, to speak at the Slifka Center at Yale, and the public can come Saturday at 5:30. Tell me about this group, Jeffrey. So I was kind of surprised to find out there was an organization called Jewish Veg. How did it start? Why did it start? And what does it do?
Great question. It actually goes back to 1975. It was originally created as Jewish Vegetarians of North America. The original founder was a gentleman named Jonathan Wolf from Chicago. And it was created because this is exactly what our Torah or the Bible and the rabbinic tradition point to. So there was a need for this organization, but Jewish Vegetarians of North America back in 75 was right at the forefront of vegetarian advocacy in this country of any kind.
That was the Moosewood era, where vegetarian food was just laden with dairy, tons of cheese, tons of cream, tons of eggs. Vegetarian has evolved. I know when I went from vegetarian to vegan, I'm vegetarian for a number of reasons. I started with factory farming and not want to take more from the world and destroy it more than I contribute. And spiritual, which is the same reason I follow Judaism, is wanting to follow a path to spiritual purity, or just feeling clean in my soul and being a positive part of this world and connected to this world. So logically, it often leads us to an argument, well, why aren't you vegan then? You're still using the animal products and the way they're grown, and that kind of works. But a lot of vegetarian advocacy morphed to veganism. Is that what happened with your organization?
Right, exactly. It was a vegetarian organization for its first, I would say 35 years or so.
All the way to 2000.
Right, or even past that. Well, 35 would be 2010.
Sometimes vegans can't do math.
Yeah, exactly.
The eggs have the math.
You were close. However, now, yes, everyone on our board of directors, everyone on our staff, every recipe on our website is vegan.
All right. So now tell me about your path, Jeffrey. You said you grew up in San Diego. You've lived in Pittsburgh for a couple of decades now.
Yeah.
You were a journalist at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette.
Yes, I was.
What did you cover?
I covered actually mostly government and politics, but of course my mind first went to crime because those three things are tightly intertwined.
Yes. So when did you become, I guess you became a vegetarian in 2007, a vegan in 2010, according to your website. So around the same time as the organization. What brought you on that path? How did this crime-minded politics reporter in a gritty city, post-industrial city of Pittsburgh, make the shift? Were you already Jewish, observant? Well, how'd this happen?
Yes, it actually came through Judaism, which actually, in the long run, led to me getting this job with this organization. I loved meat. I ate everything that was kosher.
I grew up loving McDonald's. I love McDonald's.
Me too.
Yeah.
However, one day I was in synagogue. The creation story was being read, that first chapter of Genesis. And when the Torah reader got to verse 29, where God is saying this is the first conversation between God and human beings in the Bible. And God says, I've given you the plants for you to eat, period. I said, wow, I guess we're supposed to be vegetarians.
And
that was the start of my journey.
So now on my journey, I'm not at the same place. So I feel strongly comfortable being a vegan, being an observant Jew. I don't like to proselytize because I feel like there are cruel things people can do who are vegan and are religious Jews, right? That it's more a personal path. So when I think about the Torah holding out this ideal, which I think is a real ideal about eating plants only, I also think about other ways the Torah has ideals that we don't really live up to. The putative 613 commandments. We don't really follow all of them. They're supposed to be an ideal. And there is a lot of Jewish tradition about not being a Nazir, right? Not having to be cutting off all your hair and being the strictest of the strict. And there's a whole fundamentalist tradition now in Judaism, as in other religions, that the authentic way to do it is just to find more and more restrictions, more and more way to think you're pure and tell other people what to do. And I just wonder whether a lot of people would argue with, not that you shouldn't be vegan. Vegan is a nice goal to go after, but as a society, as an advocate, do we need to be telling people to reach that pure ideal?
No, great question. And in our organization, we have something called our Veg Pledge program, which helps people transition to a plant-based diet. And if you look at that program, it meets people where they are. You can pledge to try a plant-based diet one day a week or one meal a day. So I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree with it. But the issue is, and this all comes back to Judaism, there is a Torah mandate, in the Torah called Zar Ba'alei Chayim, which is to prevent animal suffering. And what has happened in animal agriculture in our lifetime, especially in the past 30 years, it has become so unbelievably cruel that it's actually desecrating, not just minor violation.
You're participating in
Zar
destroying the
Ba'alei
planet, cruelty.
But you're also the cruelty that is being inflicted on the animals it's such a blatant violation of Jewish law. I don't think you can compare it to being a Nazir.
I agree with
some
you.
of these more obscure.
If you look at how what chickens are running the cows. So along with the trend toward more veganism, it's been amazing in my years as a vegan how much easier it is to be a vegan in society. Even on Amtrak, you get a vegan burger. I mean, there's a great Caribbean vegan place right down the street here from where we are, of soul food, and it just, even at regular restaurants, they even know what vegan is. But along with that have come alternatives. So I'm not interested in stuff that tastes like meat. I'm not interested in eating meat for a lot of reasons that you discussed, primarily how it deals with animals in our environment, but also personally for my soul. However, there are people making an argument that if you eat free-range, well-treated animals' meat, and now they're using DNA or the cells of animals to create laboratory meat that tastes like meat. I have no interest in that, but what about the ethics of those?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's really two different categories.
Yes.
I'll answer the second one first. It isn't on the market yet, so it's almost
Beyond
a bit
meat.
Premature to know lab-grown meat is not available commercially yet. Only plant-based meat.
But it's going to be.
Most likely it will be because of the amount of money that's being invested, but that may be 2 or 3 years or more down the road. Secondly, but when it comes to so-called humane meat, and I do say so-called, there is no regulation really of these terms, certainly no government regulation. So An egg producer, for instance, can put free range on their packaging. It means nothing. There is no regulation or oversight of that. And in reality, in most cases, it truly means nothing. And the animals are subjected to just as much cruelty as they would be in a conventional operation. In fact, they usually are quite conventional in the way they operate. So we get this question all the time: can I eat so-called humane meat? There's also this issue. Let's say you're a parent, and for 18 years you raise your child lovingly. You provide food, shelter, education, affection. But then on the kid's 18th birthday, you kill your child. No one would think that's okay, but that's what we're doing to animals. These animals are being killed when they're very young. So they're being denied, the life and the liberty to enjoy the rest of their lives.
Yeah. All right. We're talking to Jeffrey Spitz Cohan, the executive director of Jewish Veg, an organization that promotes veganism and Judaism together as one package. So, Jeffrey, what does the organization do? Why do we have this group, and how many people work for it on salary? I noticed a lot of names on that website. Do you really have this big staff?
No, what you see on the website, the staff is, we have 4.5 employees.
That's a lot
so we're
for an
not
organization
huge.
like this.
We need more because our job is so big.
What is the job?
Right, the job is basically to both encourage and help our fellow Jews to transition to plant-based diets in accordance with Jewish values. That's our mission.
So one thing you do is you're a resource. I noticed a lot of great cookbooks, a lot of great books about veganism and Judaism in your website. What do you do in addition to connecting people to recipes and philosophical tracts?
A couple of different things. One is the reason I'm in New Haven this weekend, which is we have a speakers bureau. So we speak at synagogues, we speak on college campuses, we speak at Jewish community centers. We give presentations about why Jews should be considering this. We also have a vegan birthright trip, which happens twice a year. Yeah, Ooh. It's very exciting. It's amazing that this didn't exist.
So that's a free trip for young people, is it?
Yes.
To visit Israel?
Yes, in connection with birthright.
So that's the birthright is for people who don't know, some of the money doesn't come from the greatest place. It sends people for free, if you're Jewish, to go visit Israel. A lot of young people do it. It's a meaningful trip. And you're saying there's a version of the trip where you can or you do eat vegan the whole time?
You do eat vegan the entire time.
And
it showcases the vegan movement in Israel.
Wow. And also in Israel, it's a great place because the cuisine has so much naturally vegan. I mean, even though Jewish cuisine has such great traditional dairy food. I know when I grew up, everyone talked about the brisket, the chicken on Friday night, and then the dairy, the bagels and lox, that you had Saturday morning, which is an important touchstone for me when I think about being a kid. But I think about Israeli food, I think about hummus, falafel. I mean, a lot of the Middle Eastern food doesn't have dairy in it that are kind of specialties already that everybody eats. How do you get them a schedule so that they eat completely vegan on birthright?
Because, for instance, we work with hotels. They study to make sure that the breakfast they go to has ample vegan options. We take them to vegan restaurants. Israel has become the most vegan-friendly country in the world.
And some of the most famous chefs, vegan chefs, right?
Right. And, in Tel Aviv, there's, 400 vegan-friendly restaurants.
Wow.
Some are completely vegan, and some are just vegan-friendly, but there's 400 restaurants just in Tel Aviv.
Wow. I remember Philly used to be the gold standard when I was younger. It's because they had 2 kosher vegan Chinese restaurants right near each other. There's still a couple there. And so what about hechshers? Now, hechshers are when a rabbinical authority has said that everything about a restaurant is kosher, you're safe to eat there. Some of us feel like if you're eating vegan, you're going to be okay because there won't be less than a drop of 1/60th of the food you're eating that has, some kind of trace of meat. Does your organization feel okay about people eating at vegan restaurants or vegetarian restaurants that haven't gotten rabbinical supervision?
That's an individual choice, so we can't make that choice for people, but I certainly agree with you. As an observant Jew, you're very safe eating in a vegan restaurant, whether it has a hechsher, a rabbinic supervision or not.
There's a whole argument, too. Like my daughter who keeps a kosher home when Shomer Shabbos, she's married. She believes you should be ingredient kosher. She actually believes that the supervision is a racket that goes away from the tenets of Judaism. So she actually does more research because it kind of makes your life easy. If it's got a hexer, you're probably okay, even though everyone argues about tablet K. She actually researches where the ingredients come from, but she says that's a better way than going with the hexers.
I do recommend that. And if you look back at the agri-processors case in 2007, where the largest kosher slaughterhouse in the country,
Postville.
Yeah, in Postville, Iowa, was investigated. And what they found was that the practices, in terms of both how the animals were treated, but also in terms of how the employees were being treated, was it was so awful that it was hard for people to believe they were certified as kosher, but they were.
It was a shanda.
Yeah, it really was a shanda.
So what about, now you come from Pittsburgh, just for one quick detour, we talk about cruelty to animals. We had cruelty to human beings there. Obviously, the whole world was thinking about Pittsburgh because of the Tree of Life, Eitz Chaim synagogue, where a white supremacist walked in and started gunning down Jews because he was mad that Jewish organizations were supporting refugees to America. Where were you that Saturday?
I was actually speaking in a synagogue in Brooklyn.
Oh.
Yeah, and I'm an employee of the synagogue. I was in the rabbi's study after services. We didn't have our cell phones on, of course. And someone came in and said, "Did you hear about the shooting at the synagogue in Pittsburgh?" And I thought it was a sick joke based on the fact I was from Pittsburgh. But of course, it was sick, all right, but it was no joke.
What's been, when you went back to Pittsburgh, what was it like to be Pittsburgh after that and now? When someone just walked in the Saturday morning service, started shooting and gunning people down.
It's I would say two things about that. We're months down the road from that now, and we said we're not even close to being completely recovered from that. It's going to take years, maybe decades, to completely heal, if we ever do heal from that. But on the other hand, what we've seen is an incredible outpouring of support, both in the local Pittsburgh community, the non-Jewish community, but even nationally and internationally. So the support that the Pittsburgh Jewish community has received has been, it's been a real comfort during this difficult time. And I think we're seeing the same type of thing now in conjunction with New Zealand and the mosque shooting there.
I was reading this morning that people want to move to New Zealand now because of the way that country reacted to that massacre.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of interesting. So kind
of I'm sure you're referring to the assault weapons ban, which, of course, we had in this country at one time, and unfortunately, we let it sunset.
Okay, back to food, the important stuff. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
Actually, I don't recommend this, but I just had a vegan energy bar. Okay, that's all I've had so far to eat.
What did you have for dinner last night?
Actually, it's funny because I did take the train. Mm-hmm. So I did have the vegan burger on Amtrak.
All of us vegans know about that vegan burger on Amtrak. How was it? And how about tonight? What do you have on Shabbos dinner off?
Tonight, we're having dinner at the Hillel, and they're preparing a special vegan dinner at the Hillel, so I can't wait to see.
I ate at the Hillel last night. We had a panel on the Jewish-Israeli elections.
Oh, good.
Guests, and last night they had a good teriyaki stir-fry with tofu, and they had some nice Asian noodles. Yeah. What do you often have on Shabbat? Do you have any special Shabbat foods?
The one thing, and there's a recipe for this on our website, vegan cholent. So cholent is a stew that's used traditionally on Shabbat. It's usually a beef stew, but you can make it without meat, and it tastes every bit as good and it's much healthier for you.
Defining parts include the potatoes, maybe sweet potatoes, carrots are key. And then what do you put, beans in or tofu?
You can put beans. You can, actually, you can, it's cholent. You can put whatever you want in it, whatever you like.
Well, Passover's coming up.
Yes.
That's a big, I used to think it was a challenge for a vegetarian than a vegan. Then I discovered it's a celebration of spring. And the kind of foods that we eat all year as vegans are, in fact, perfect for, heavy on the greens, on the stuff, the salads. And then when there's a whole argument about kitniyot, right? There's a tradition that you shouldn't eat certain grains, not because it's prescribed that you're not allowed to on Passover, but people in Eastern Europe used to mistake certain foods for other foods, so they didn't want you to eat beans. But, there are a lot of authorities now that say, of course, you can have beans, you can have tofu. If you live in Israel, you can get kosher for Passover tofu and all the bean products. So I actually have, over the years, we not made that many different special foods for Passover. I'm just leaving out the bread. How about you?
Right, and we sell a vegan Passover cookbook.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because we sell several cookbooks, but this is by far our most popular cookbook.
And what's some of the trademark dishes?
Well, the one that comes first to mind, of course, is matzo balls.
Mm-hmm.
Because matzo ball soup,
which
everyone eats at their Passover Seder, is usually served in a chicken broth. And usually there's eggs used in cohering the matzo balls. Yeah. But you can certainly serve it in a vegetable stock, and there are certainly binders you can use that come from plants that work just as well.
Such as?
Flaxseed would be one. There's all sorts of binders, and if you go to our website, you will see recipes for vegan matzo balls. Your matzo balls will come out just as good without the eggs.
A couple of years ago, I had matzo ball soup on Pesach that changed my life.
Really? I can't wait to hear this.
I have the sweetest daughter-in-law. She was cooking for me. She was making matzo ball soup. She wanted to make sure I could have some. She's vegetarian, but not vegan. And she cut turnips in the shape of matzo ball. They were so good that everybody else who was just vegetarian, not vegan, was eating them too. And it just changed my whole conception of the soup.
That's
the matzo ball.
We'll have to get that recipe. That's a great idea.
Right. What was a great idea was for Jeffrey Spitz Cohan to come to New Haven this week to spread the gospel about Jewish veganism. And as you've been hearing this half hour, that is a thing. And some have actually lived that way. How would people find out more about your organization, Jeffrey?
The easiest place is just to go to our website, jewishveg.org, jewishveg.org. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under Jewish Veg.
Well, it was a real treat to meet you, and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much,
making
Paul.
the world a better place.
All right, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long and all weekend long here at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.